Hi, I'm Nicole Jarvis, the Marketing Director at Bloomsbury USA, and today I'm going to talk to you about 6 titles that I think will be perfect for your book clubs. First is Chasing Me to My Grave by Winfred Rembert. Whenever this book came in on acquisitions, we couldn't stop talking about this. Winfred Rembert was born to a family of field laborers in Georgia. As a teen, he joined the civil rights movement. Later, he was arrested fleeing from a demonstration, survived a near lynching at the hands of law enforcement, and spent 7 years in a chain gang. During that time, he met the indomitable Patsy, who would later become his wife. Years later, whenever he was 51, Winfred began to immortalize his youth by painting and drawing it into leather, a skill he learned in prison. Sadly, Winfred passed away this April, but not before we had the chance to get to know him and love him. Chasing Me to My Grave presents his entire body of leatherwork alongside his story. He introduces us to Black life in Cuthbert, Georgia, the place where he first learned of a life outside of the cotton fields. He pays tribute to the vibrant community there and to his wife, Patsy. He shows us the dangers and promises of the civil rights movement and the brutalities of incarceration. Through beautiful prose and painted leather, Chase Me to My Grave celebrates Black life while giving us a painful and urgent warning about what lies at the heart of American culture and society. Next, we have Real Estate by Deborah Levy. This new memoir from 3-time Booker finalist Levy is gorgeous and exciting. Dwight Garner of the New York Times calls Levy an elliptical genius and always a pleasure to consume. Real Estate concludes her groundbreaking trilogy of living autobiographies with an intimate meditation on what it means to have a home and the specters that reside inside of it. Levy's inventory of possessions, both real and imagined, pushes questions about our cultural understanding of belongings, and the value of a woman's intellectual and personal life. This book is perfect for anyone interested in a smart examination of modern womanhood and is sure to spark conversation. Next is Today a Woman Went Mad in the Supermarket by Hilma Wolitzer. At 90 years old, Hilma Wolitzer has established a reputation of taking mundane people and ordinary events and bringing them into new heights. This is mostly a collection of short stories that were published in the 60s and 70s, along with a new story that brings her characters into the present. In the title story, a person tries to help a woman in the supermarket who seems to have shattered under the expectations of motherhood. There are other vignettes between a narrator and her husband, which are hilarious and heartwarming. We're excited to introduce Hilma to a new generation of readers, showing them her acute wit and domestic grace in her writing. This book is going to be perfect for fans of Elizabeth Strout, Lucia Berlin, and Hilma's daughter, Meg Wolitzer. After the success of Women Talking by Miriam Taves, we at Bloomsbury were so excited to see what Miriam would bring us next, and her new book, Fight Night, did not disappoint. This book, about 3 generations of women, touches on all the cornerstones of what makes people love Miriam: religion, family, and womanhood. This book alternates between the young and precocious Swiv and her irrepressible grandma. Grandma has spent her entire life fighting. Raised with a strict religious upbringing, she first had to fight against those who would take away her joy, her independence. Then she had to fight to accept the ones that she loved who left. Now, with her health failing, she's fighting for her family. Her daughter, partnerless, in the 3rd trimester of her pregnancy, and her granddaughter, 9-year-old precocious Swiv, who has just been suspended from school. Now, cramped in their small Toronto home, Swiv and Grandma are going to write letters that they'll never send, trying to explain their lives. Fight Night is a love letter to mothers and grandmothers and to all the women who have to fight to make their place in this world. Next, we have a nonfiction book. In 2015, Sam Quinones wrote Dreamland about the American opioid epidemic. He became the voice on the subject, and since then has been asked to speak more upon it. And now that's just what he's doing with The Least of Us. As the country has tried to move past the opioid epidemic, Quinones was among the first to realize the dangers that still lay ahead. New kingpins, new synthetic drugs. Worst of all is fentanyl, which is more powerful than morphine and has been laced into cocaine, meth, and marijuana, and has caused tens of thousands of deaths. Quinones has hit the road to try to figure out what we can do, but amid the tattered landscape of despair across America, he also found pockets of hope, places where people were embracing the forgotten and ignored. That's whenever Quinones realized that we are only as strong as our most vulnerable. Book clubs love Sam. After Dreamland, he traveled the country to visit more than 200 different book clubs, and we know that the least of us will resonate just as strongly within those communities most affected by the opioid epidemic. Last but not least is a book from another Booker Prize finalist author, Elif Shafak. The Island of Missing Trees is a richly magical novel about belonging and identity, love and trauma, and nature and renewal. This book focuses first on two teens who are meeting in the taverna on the island they both call home. It's the only place where they can meet because Kostas, a Greek, and Daphne, a Turk, are not meant to be. There in the taverna, they're hidden under the branches of a fig tree, which has grown through the cavity in the roof. The fig tree witnesses their happy meetings and their sad and surreptitious goodbyes. The fig tree also witnesses whenever the island devolves into war, the capital is reduced to ash and rubble, and the teenagers disappear. Years later, Kostas, a botanist, has returned looking for new samples and also for Daphne. Reunited, they take a clipping of the fig tree in a suitcase bound for London. There, years later, their daughter Ada only has the fig tree in her garden as the sign of a past that is never spoken of. She can use the fig tree to try to uncover the secrets and silence of what was left behind. Elif Shafak is a rock star writer. I've worked on her since Three Daughters of Eve, and I can't wait for her readers who already know how great she is to read this new book and for new readers to discover her as her star is only rising. Thank you so much for listening and happy reading.
Hope you enjoyed this publisher presentation. If you'd like to see more book group speed dating, follow the link in the description and find more on readinggroupguides.com.